Good afternoon, I'm Denise Tan, and this is One News Now. The Philippine Statistics Authority confirms a hacking attack on one of its systems. PSA Data Privacy Officer Eliezer Ambatali told Radio 5 Ted Filon and DJ Chacha that hackers were able to get limited data from the community-based monitoring system. The CBMS contains data necessary to analyze target populations for local government policies. The PSA assures no financial information had been compromised, particularly the Philippine identification and civil registration systems.
Wala pong amount or financial income na nakalagay dito sa ating mga datos sa CBMS. Actually, ang tinutukoy natin ng mga financial information dito ay mga non-quantifiable. So ibig sabihin ito ay yung mga indication lang ng kanilang financial status.
The PSA system's hacking comes on the heels of the Medusa ransomware attack on PhilHealth. But unlike the health state insurer's breach, no ransom had been asked for PSA's database. The DICT earlier said local actors are behind the PSA hacking while an international syndicate attacked PhilHealth. An investigation is ongoing.
It would seem like Sir Ted that they just want to expose, and actually based on their post, they are bragging that they have successfurly entered and captured some information in our database. But right now there are no intention, or there are no calls coming from them towards us asking for anything.
The Transportation Department will continue its probe into the supposed corruption in LTFRB. That's despite the recantation of former employee of the agency. DOTr Chief Jaime Bautista said that he is pleased that Jeffrey Tumbado took back his accusations. Tumbado was the executive assistant of suspended LTFRB Chief Teofilo Guadis III. He earlier claimed that Guadis knew about bribery and other illegal activities in the agency. Meantime, Secretary Bautista is considering filing a libel case against Manibela Chairman Amar Valbuena.
Well, pinapaaral ko rin yan sa ating mga abogado. No? Sinisira niya yung maraming mga pangalan ng walang basis. No? Napaka-irresponsible transport leader.
For his part, Valbuena said he is ready to face any charge that will be filed against him. Valbuena sought the assistance of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group in filing a complaint against the transportation chief. He added his group will go ahead with their tigil pasada on Monday.
Pakiramdam ko, gusto nilang i-clip yung mouth ko para tumigil na kami rito. Imbis po na mag-imbestiga tayo, pag-atake po sa aming mga transport leader ang ginagawa natin.
In other news, the 2024 budget for the Office of the President gets swift approval at the Senate committee level. The Committee on Finance approved the 10.7 billion peso budget for President Marcos's office in less than half an hour. This includes confidential and intelligence funds worth 4.5 billion pesos. Panel Chairman Sonny Angara said he sees no reason to strip the President's office of CIFs.
President, yeah? There are many things na even me as a senator, hindi ko alam kasi presidente lang nakaka-receive ng intelligence, di ba? Siya lang nakakalam. Meron siyang alam na hindi natin alam. Yun ang basic, yan ang bottom line dyan. The difference sa Office of the President is dati nang meron eh. So hindi siya pinag-usapan na kasi dati nang meron tapos wala pang increase sa amount. Whereas dun dito sa OVP, dati wala.
Meanwhile, former President Rodrigo Duterte defends his daughter, Vice President Sara Duterte, over her request for confidential funds. Speaking to SMNI, the former Chief Executive bared where VP Sara will spend the allocation. The OVP is asking for 500 million pesos in confidential funds, while the DepEd is seeking 150 million pesos under the same expense for next year. These budget requests, however, have been realigned by the lower house to security agencies, while the Senate is still deliberating whether to do the same.
Binasa ko yung rasyonal. Ang plano niya, unahan ko na lang. So I'm sorry, I have to divulge this because ako naman na yung binigay mo naman sa akin. I just make it public. gamitin niya ang pera. It's only 125 million. Gamitin niya sa mga PMT. Palakasin niya sa high school. Pati ibalik talaga niya yung ROTC.
Time to take a quick break. One News Now will be back with more stories after that. Stay with us. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Denise Tan. The Foreign Affairs Department confirms the death of 2 Filipinos in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, but authorities say there could be one more. One of the confirmed fatalities was a 33-year-old female from Pangasinan who's newly married. She worked for 6 years in Israel as a caregiver. The other is a 42-year-old male from Pampanga. Meanwhile, the embassy is verifying the reported death of another Filipino. The person's identity is being confirmed through DNA testing. 1 Filipino is still at the hospital due to injuries, while 3 remain unaccounted for. One of them is Eleanor Pacheco, who was reported to have been abducted by Hamas.
Still pending status updates. Inuulat natin sa Israeli Defense Forces who operate on the ground. Kasi meron pa hong hostilities, may rocket fire, etc. So, hindi pa safe on the ground itself, no? So, ang Israeli Defense Forces are informed of the OFWs na hinahanap pa natin. At kung may na-locate sila, dinadala nila sa rescue areas Hindi ko lang po ma-disclose kung ano yung location. But merong rescue areas kung saan naroon dinadala nila yung mga nasasagip na mga OFWs. At yun naman ang pinuntahan ng ating labor attaché at welfare officer.
Meanwhile, the violence has also spilled over to Lebanon as Israel targets the Hamas-allied Hezbollah group. Israel launched an airstrike against the group positioned in southern Lebanon. This is in response to the rocket attack fired by Hezbollah, which killed Israeli troops. Some residents of southern Lebanon have decided to flee their homes to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. For its part, the United Nations raised concerns over the spillover of the conflict in Israel, calling on all parties to avoid escalation.
I appeal to all parties and those who have an influence over those parties to avoid any further escalation and spillover. I call for the immediate release of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Civilians must be protected at all times. Crucial life-saving supplies, including fuel, food and water, must be allowed into Gaza. We need rapid and unimpeded humanitarian access now.
We now give you a quick look at today's other top stories. Pag-asa is monitoring a new low-pressure area. The LPA was last spotted some 135 kilometers west of Coron, Palawan. It is unlikely to develop into a cyclone and may exit the Philippine territory this weekend. For now, it may bring rains over some parts of Mimaropa, southern Luzon, and Visayas. The LPA east of Visayas is also unlikely to intensify in the next few hours. It will be pulled away by an active tropical cyclone outside the Philippine territory. Meralco is implementing power rate hikes for October. The overall rate for a typical household will be up by more than 42 centavos per kilowatt hour this month. This translates to an additional 84 pesos on bills of households that consume 200 kilowatt hours. Meralco attributes higher power rates to the increase in the generation charge. Meralco added transmission charges also saw a net increase due to higher costs of ancillary services. Police autopsy reports show that a grade 5 student in Antipolo who allegedly died from slapping had an underlying medical condition. 14-year-old Francis Gumikib died of hemorrhage and swelling of the brain. Police said this is a rare condition and is not connected to Francis being hit by his teacher. Despite the autopsy findings, the National Police will still pursue child abuse charges against the teacher. One News Now will be back at 3:15 p.m. Join us again later. I'm Denise Tan. We are One News.